back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and Chris Pratt is, if you saw my short, being possibly cast in the DC universe. I mean, he's got that good relationship with James Gunn, and frankly, despite the fact that everyone is angry at James Gunn, and despite the fact that certain individuals are always angry at Chris Pratt, it does seem like a match made in heaven for some. Honestly, not me. I want to see Chris Pratt go to the DC universe. I want to see him get away from Marvel and DC and move on to roles that are more befitting of someone of his talent and stop doing these blockbuster action roles with superheroes that, quite frankly, are going to go the way of the Western eventually and just not be profitable. But that being said, let's read what this has to say about Chris Pratt joining the DC universe as fan-favorite time traveler. Fans are calling for James Gunn to cast Chris Pratt as DC's Booster Gold. Now, I did say I want Chris Pratt to stop doing superhero roles and maybe move on to something more worthy of his talents. I actually wouldn't mind the casting of him as Booster Gold. It is an interesting casting. Booster Gold's an interesting character. Also one that is relatively unknown, so bringing in a big name like Chris Pratt to play him would probably do the role some good. But let's go through here and see what it has to say. With James Gunn now the co-CEO of DC Studios, comic book fans have taken this as an opportunity to suggest which Marvel actors he worked with in the MCU should be brought over to the DCU. For some, the first and most obvious choice is Chris Pratt, who they would say would be a perfect fit for Booster Gold, a time-traveling football player. According to CBR, Gunn says that Booster Gold is the hero he gets the most fan requests about. That is very difficult to believe. Just who... We've all seen, Marvel, DC movies, the whole nine. Who's asking about Booster Gold? That's like telling me people are asking about the X-Men character Maggot. And if you don't know who Maggot is, look it up. His mutation is that he can't digest things, so he has maggots crawl out of his stomach to digest for him. Point is, I just find Booster Gold to be a strange request that he's getting over and over, but alright. But that doesn't mean that he has plans to put him in a movie. Gunn went on to explain that fans' votes, which still count for something, we hope, aren't a part of his decision-making process. Oh, what a shock. James Gunn not listening to fans? It's almost like they're keeping Ezra Miller and have fired Henry Cavill, and they're not listening to fans. Who could have foreseen this? The superheroes fans most want to see aren't necessarily the ones he is looking to put into future films. That doesn't make sense. We're the customer. We're the consumer. We know what we want. Oh yeah, I know you fans want to see this, but I'm going to completely disregard that and make a movie about character Y instead of character X because it's what I want to do. I get that might be what you want to do, but it's still a business. If you guys can hear, Birdbrain here is freaking out because he knows how agitating James Gunn is. Isn't that right, Hondo? Figure maybe if I grabbed him and put him in frame, he'd be less likely to squat box all over us, and maybe we could actually talk about Chris Pratt in the DC universe. Let's continue. There's also the little problem of Booster Gold's age. While some Marvel and DC fans think Chris Pratt could bring something really cool to the role, others note that Booster Gold is a college student in the comics. He may have youthful charisma, but at 43 years old, Chris Pratt's a bit old to play an undergrad at this point. I mean, okay, so they changed that aspect. They changed a bunch of other stuff when making live-action versions of comic books. You're trying to tell me that Tobey Maguire, James Franco, and Kirsten Dunst were all high school age? Go back and watch Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. It holds up remarkably well, except for trying to portray them as high schoolers. Other fans are split on whether Chris Pratt would be right for the role at all, regardless of age, with some saying that he doesn't have enough charm to play Booster Gold. Who have you... No one is saying this. Chris Pratt oozes charm. That's one of his, biggest qualities. Others citing his charm as his best quality. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I struggle to find somebody. You might not like Chris Pratt, that's fair. You might not appreciate Chris Pratt for his beliefs if you're one of those individuals or whatnot, and I get it. But he is charming. That's kind of how he's coasted on all of his roles that got him to be famous. Now, he's got far more talent than that, but that was kind of a big draw for Chris Pratt, was his boyish charm. Some moviegoers also have a bit of Chris Pratt fatigue after seeing him in so many blockbuster roles in the past few years. One actor can't be everywhere, can he? I don't know, The Rock has been doing everything in the blockbuster since what, like 2007? And we've never gotten a break from him since, and it's still making money. So I don't see any reason Chris Pratt would be different. Even though James Gunn has been making waves as the new head of DC Studios, he's still attached to the MCU. Plus, he's still working with Chris Pratt and his co-stars on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Before he has any time to come up with plots for new DC heroes like Booster Gold, Gunn has to wrap up this final film in the Marvel franchise. The film's wrapped up. I mean, it's probably in post-production and ready to come out, so I don't really know about that. Gunn has been praised in the past for being able to create stories that are both fun and emotional, with the final Guardians of the Galaxy film being no exception. This will be one even bigger and more action-packed than the ones that came before it, but will also have an even bigger emotional payoff. No, it won't. It's Disney. The Disney films, the Disney Marvel films never have an emotional payoff. They're too afraid of making their, at least not an emotional payoff that isn't happiness. And I'm sorry, I'm getting tired of that formula. Like, Disney and Marvel are just so afraid to have us feel any sort of twinge of sadness for more than a few seconds. According to Gunn, the movie was torture to make because it's a big movie and so different from the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special because the special is so wacky and insane. Gunn said, "This movie is so emotional, but it's been a real joy making it." Gunn also said that he definitely has plans to work with Chris Pratt again in the future, as well as others of his fellow Guardians actors. Pom Klementieff, Zoe Saldana, Karen Gillan, and Dave Bautista, because all of them grew very close while making the Guardians of the Galaxy films. There could be a role for all of them in a Booster Gold movie. Most likely no, but the idea isn't too far-fetched. Well, that's the end of that one, and let me tell you, I don't care. And I mean that in the most Chris Pratt positive ways. I want to see Chris Pratt go on and do more things like The Terminal List. You know, movies where, or TV shows where he has to actually act and not just be the funny goofball. Booster Gold is a cool character. He really is. But I don't know that Chris Pratt would be enough to make me see a Booster Gold movie, considering I don't want to support James Gunn's DCU. And there are probably a lot of individuals out there like me that feel burned by the DC universe that don't want to support it just out of spite for what happened to Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, and what's continuing to employ the alleged groomer Ezra Miller. So yeah, I think that it's not far-fetched to say that James Gunn's DC is gonna be off to a rough start and very well could fail entirely purely because of fan backlash. And I wouldn't be opposed to that because the fans are the customers. The fans know what they want. The idea is to give a customer what they want. And if fans don't want to see James Gunn or don't want to see Booster Gold, or they do want to see Booster Gold but James Gunn won't give Booster Gold, then what incentive is there for us to believe that money will be made? I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me on a consumer level. But then again, that's why I'm not in charge of DC Studios. I don't get to make the big brain decisions like that. All I know is that, believe it or not, Chris Pratt is a very good actor. I'm excited to see him as Mario. I've already said my piece about that. If you want to know what I think of him as Mario, check out my rumor about a Legend of Zelda movie being in production. Because I go all in on my thoughts for Chris Pratt as Mario. And then he's also signed on to play Garfield. Chris Pratt's schedule is pretty stacked. Between Guardians, Mario, Garfield, he's got a lot going on. I said in my short, making a joke, that if he was to join the DC universe, I'd like him to play another CGI character. Make him the Red Lantern Dex Star. Just complete his trifecta of CGI furry characters. And I know you're going to say Mario is not a furry character, but have you seen that mustache? Homeboy is furry. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you want to see Chris Pratt as Booster Gold or in the DC universe at all? Do you even want to see the DC universe at all? Let me know there or on Twitter, and please do subscribe. I've got plenty more nerdy news ranging from things like Dungeons and Dragons to Magic the Gathering, anime, even Gwen Stefani and various female celebrities that turns out to have a bit of a nerdy streak. So you can find it here in the Nerdosphere. Until next time, this has been Words of Paradise.